Leenock on the Mongols, Kasva on the Roost. The reason I love this so much is Leenock has been kind of low-key grinding this Civ out. He's been really subtle, he's been really unnoticed, but I think he actually could end up quickly becoming one of the GOAT Mongol players in the current meta. On the other side, Kasva, a guy known for aggression on a Civ that can still field aggression better than most other Civs. Not to mention the outline possibility that maybe he drops a few outposts in this game, Lidda.
It's definitely a possibility. One of the more underappreciated things, or not necessarily underappreciated even, one of the lesser known things in the newest patch is that while towers were nerfed for most civilizations, the roosts were omitted from this one. So wooden fortresses standing as strong as ever, and that is something to consider, especially for an aggressive player like Kasva, who doesn't necessarily shy away from going super aggro with towers.
Especially against a Civ that usually would be kind of shrugged, not bothered by that outpost aggression, right? Like the Mongols can just back away when they see you outposting off somewhere. The issue in this situation is it is a watertight map, so the Mongol player is likely to park himself on a dock line. If you find a way to weave in here and block this out, you can completely shut Lee's game down early. And something that is now stopping Mongols from having their game shut down early, people probably noticed it, they should have noticed it by now, is the Gur. You start with a Gur, so finally, and I'm just going to say it louder. Finally, after so many months, Lidakor, the Mongols are no longer a truly RNG Civ to play.
Indeed. I definitely think that that's a buff as well to the Mongol Dark Age, and it also makes them a little less reliant on the super aggro Dark Age play. I think it gives them a little bit more versatility, and it's nice to see that Mongols are now, to a certain extent, deviating away from that always tower rush with spearman type of an approach. Obviously, this comes together with the changes to towers as well, but it's nice to see that while the Mongols, they got taken away one of their more strong elements of their gameplay, those being the towers, they also got something in return for Dark Age. And according to the stats on the rank ladder, it's not like they seem very overpowered at the beginning of the game, although I'm sure that there will be some people who would debate that.
Yeah, there's always going to be someone who hates Mongols and French, even though if you look at the stats, those two Civs aren't forming the correct showing in the win rates, right? The lead is actually right now the Abbasis. That is the Civ that everyone's looking towards. That's the Civ I'm expecting to come out later on in every single one of these series. Wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being our most picked Civ of the weekend alongside the Roost. Just two dominant Civs right now. And the key reason behind it all, Lidda, and another reason why the Mongols maybe aren't as popular at the moment, is that the Roost and Abbasis especially heavily leverage food and wood as the game goes on. The Mongols leverage gold. In fact, the big eco-inflation has come off the back of gold. And the problem with that right now is the meta is hard locked on the use of food and wood because of how much longer those sources can last in a game of Age of Empires.
That's indeed a great point. Ooh, look at that, indeed.
What? Dude,
look
not
at
just the sheep.
It's like a zoo.
Yeah, it's not just the sheep, it's the wolf factor as well. Leenock's like, yep, I hear that wolves really like lambs. Come on, little boys. Like, come on, follow me back to base. I will kill you, but admittedly, I won't gain any upside from it, unlike the Roos.
I mean, I understand the wolves. There is a quite juicy bait out there to trail.
There's a lot. Like, honestly, if I was a wolf in that situation, I'm just looking at the two sides and like, well, he's got like 2 sheep. I mean, he's got 20. I'm gonna follow him, okay? I might die, but there's more chance I'll die fat and full.
True indeed. Let's take a look at how Bounty is doing for Kasva though, because Leenock has done a masterful job denying the Bounty out here. You could see him getting aggroed 4 with the Wolves on the Scout, and of course the Khan also aggroed 1. You see Kasva is down to 145 Bounty only, just now up to 170. Not necessarily spectacular given how many Wolves you have on this map. Obviously, it's more compliment to Leenock's ability to deny the hunt rather than bashing Kasva for not being able to get much for him.
Well, you say we shouldn't bash Kasva. There's a way we could bash him. He rushed onto the water so quickly. If you have a look at the top, you see Mr. Roost Spammer here is only fielding 1 scout. Of course, he didn't go for the hunting cabin early, which means he couldn't get the additional bounty. So this is kind of expected. It is unfortunate. You know, you don't really care about the food gathering rates because you're fishing, but what you do care about is the lack of gold, which should slow down your tech up timing and allow Leenock to actually match you neck and neck. You can see he's boosting up now, but look at Leenock's resources. He's about 5-10 seconds maximum behind a Roost player, which is something that you shouldn't be able to say.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up. Also the fact that you will not have the chance to go for wheelbarrow, which on a hybrid map like this might not always be a thing for a Roost, but obviously when you have so much gold in Dark Age, you might as well grab that upgrade. Plus, of course, you're going to need gold a lot more than on open land maps for a Roost because you need to be making combat ships over here, so every single bit of gold denied here from Kasva is massively valuable for Leenock.
And someone I'm looking for right at the beginning of this field age is if someone will actually stockpile enough to maybe consider going into the blacksmiths. I think that's another reason why maybe there was value in Kaz getting his hands on the hunting cabin earlier. A little bit extra bounty means you can get that increased damage on ranged. And the reason that's important is that your lodger ships attack 5 times. So actually that 1 damage upgrade is worth 5 extra damage per ship.
Indeed, and obviously this is going to come down to naval combat over here because the Mongol player... Ooh, there it is. Oh, can he finish in time?
I don't think he... No, because look, he's halfway, and they take a minute to build now, and the conversion is 20 seconds. I think Leenock came too late to build this outpost.
Yeah, he's gonna try to rush it up. But this could just be even worse than that. He's gonna lose 1 villager, and he might pay more villagers' price here, actually. First one will be taken down. Yeah, this is gonna be more than 1 villager costing Leenock. This tower, second Lodya attack ship out there as well. This is painful for Leenock. Uh-oh.
Yeah, and or it might be a third if it's optimized, and it is. Nice strike there. Good move coming out of Kasva. He'll back away. He did have to convert 3 ships, but remember, the bag conversion cost isn't that high, so after he cleans up the fishing fleet, he can easily make these fishing boats again.
Easily. And he's gonna get rid of the fishing eco of Leenock, plus also killed quite a few villagers here, which this early in the game is also massive value for him. Forced the tower out of Leenock as well, so this is really good value for those early Lodya ships.
And you can see that Leenock, he couldn't hang around here, staying garrisoned inside, and his scouts were away from home, so he doesn't even get to punish this pinch
garrison.
Yep, only 3 ships alive, and this is the moment where actually Kasva can just back away, convert maybe 2 of these ships back, and then have the rest fishing. But for the moment, it seems like Leenock wants to contest him. What choice does he really have here? Because when you both go onto the dock line like this, and you're up against the Rus, those deep water fish are too big of an advantage to give over.
Absolutely, you don't want to give away water this soon, and even if you can't fish yourself, if you can deny the enemy fish, at least it's a decent trade-off for Leenock, so he's going to try and contest this with chunks. But it's an uphill battle right now. He's outnumbered 3-1, soon 4-1.
And they can't play to the other lake because right now there's Yam for Leenock, but there's no wheelbarrow, right? The run is too long. Kasva has no reason to move, but I expect him to in the next 4 to 5 minutes try and take that second lake simply as a resource denial to take away from Leenock. He doesn't realistically need it, but Leenock will.
You're saying that, but there is a blue dot right next to the right-hand side pond. I do believe Leenock is already expanding towards that lake out there. It's a little sneaky, hard to spot because it's a blue dot on blue water, but looks like Leenock, he's planning a dock there at least.
Yeah, and I expect this play to have to come out, but you don't feel good. Like, look what's happening right now. Top bar, Leenock is now researching wheelbarrow. By the time it's complete, the village is already there. You've kind of lost that value at that point. And also, the other thing to consider is this map doesn't have shoreline fish. So when you send villagers out that far, they have no other purpose afterwards. They just have to walk back.
Indeed, and it's a lot of wasted villager time out there. Bit of a naval combat coming in here. Now the chunk number is rather high for Leenock, but you see, Kasva doesn't seem to care. He just snipes the fish, and he's gonna be more than happy with the status quo on water for the time being.
Yeah, and next thing I'm looking for is to see Kasva get into the blacksmiths just to kind of get dictatorial control on this waterfront. He is going to scout the eastern front though, so might opt to go into another dock instead. That's why Leenock, he needs to prep defenses. Outpost will be going up in time this time around, and you can already see the reaction coming out from Kasva to try and mirror the movement onto this lake.
Indeed, let's see if Leenock is going to open up with a junk on that right-hand side lake, because he could possibly deny Kasva's dock, especially if the villager is being delayed. And you see, the Khan is going to spot the villager should be damaged, and the dock is delayed. If Leenock gets a junk for himself, he can possibly deny dock attempts here for Kasva, and potentially even secure the pond for himself.
Yeah, this felt really greedy for a guy who has several points of eco lead. He didn't need to just be frugal with 1 villager. 3 villagers would have made a lot of sense, especially with this choice afterwards, because I think he could have dropped a TC around the lake for some value. You know, you have got the small deer stacks. Think about the berries in the center as well. That's where Kasva could have played towards. And now Kaz, because of his gluttony, will not block out one lake and is starting to feel the pressure on the other as Leenock is now taking the combat ship lead. So it looks like the Lodgers are going to start sinking.
Indeed, Leenock kept producing ships, whereas for Kasva, he stopped for a brief moment, now allowing Leenock to outnumber his opponent, and remember that if this drags on until Castle Age, Warjunks will make an appearance, swinging the battle heavily in the favor of Leenock, although he might not even need those, because right now, yeah, he's dominating water. Kasva might even be giving up on this.
Because Kaz got greedy. Look what he done. He went for the secondary TC on land, but he played it into a very loose area that doesn't really get him much. I feel like with the way this is playing out on water, he probably could have went super aggressive with his TC to try and get central map control. As a result of not doing this, though, Kasva does at least have the option to get much earlier into the feudal units. We can see them stacking up now. You got the Knights and the Archers. Leenock needs to make a transition quick, or he might find himself hard baited onto the waterfront when everything is moved to land.
Indeed, in these hybrid maps, balancing your water and land investments are just crucial, and keep in mind, Leenock invested into quite a lot of combat ships and he doesn't have fishing eco on that left-hand side pond, so big investment for no immediate return, whereas for Kasva, his second piece is already returning its investment, and as you said, he's appearing on the field with land units, something that Leenock has absolutely no response to as of yet.
Because he has absolutely no vision. Leenock hasn't kept eyes on what's coming. By the time he knows it's here, he finally scouts it out, but look at what's arrived. There's 6 archers in the field, 2 knights as well. This is looking dire for Lee. He needs a quick response before this escalates out of control. Needs to get into the racks, but also into the archery range. The outpost going up, but the extra build time might allow punishment to come in. The knights are in on the wood line. That's going to delay escalation on the waterfront. And now with the archers parked in position, it feels like Leenock might struggle to protect his only wood line he has access to.
And it's going to be painful, because if you take a look at his resources, he was trying to go to Castle Age over here, so this strike comes at the worst possible time. He's gonna have a ton of idle time, he's going to struggle gathering the resources he still needs for Castle Age, and Kasva could delay him to Castle quite a bit using this.
Yeah, my worry now is like Leenock, he went into the stables, but he's just trying to mirror the knights with horsemen, right? It's going to be inferior. Leenock, if anything, just needs to get that cast up as quickly as possible. But what I see coming for Kasva down the line, you know, the possibility of going into siege engineering here with the amassing archers means that the timing might actually completely burn Leenock's game out here. He needs to hide the tech up, but I think Kasva's aware it's coming.
Yeah, he needs to know. He has seen absolutely no land-based units from Leenock ever since the start of the game, basically. He saw a couple of light junks, but that's it. This should give him sufficient clue to know that Leenock probably wants to go castle. He might even have a visual confirmation once he gets a little closer to Leenock's base to spot that step redoubt being built.
I think Kasva's way too defensive here for his position.
Yep.
And the reason he's being this defensive is if you look at Kasva's composition, he made the cardinal sin. He refused to take 25 seconds and 70 food to get the vision required to know how in control the game is right now. Now, of course, you do have to wait for the siege engineering, but if you had a scout on the front line, you'd know you wouldn't have to back up this much to still maintain your army.
Yeah, indeed, he's struggling with lack of vision, so he might not even know that Leenock is already halfway towards Castle Age, and as you said, if he had a scout in here, it would be much easier for him to acquire targets for those knights, and also just get to know which angle he should really attack from with that ram.
Speaking of those knights, like the timing is going to be way too late. He's going to identify the tech up coming out. He's going to punish a few villages, but Leenock is kind of out of the deep waters into the mid waters now because he has got gold, he has got food. He should have a way to get the initial lancers out, at which point these early roost knights will not be able to compete.
And do keep in mind that Leenock has not been spending basically any stone in this game, which means that he's gonna be able to sustain double production for quite a while. You see, both stables dropping double Lancers at the beginning, he could easily get up to sufficient number of Lancers to meet the ones out there for Kasva.
And you can see the problem now for Kasva is he's trying to invest in these rams to address the water situation with the eco that's being gapped by Leenock. But keep in mind that Lee has control of 2 water bases, right? So he doesn't need to worry about this assault on one. You need to pinch him on both while also pressuring in his base to ensure that these lancers don't come out to counter your rams.
He's doing a good job with that so far though, harassing the gold miners and just making sure that Leenock is pursuing those feudal age knights, buying himself some time to get to Castle Age, also taking down that dock, which will idle all the fishing ships. So far, Kasva's buffered up his Castle Age disadvantage quite nicely.
Yeah, and Leenock will unlikely invest in the war junks we talked about earlier because Kasva's diverted attention away from water. The war junks don't actually have good range to deal with this. Interesting choice by Kaz, though. He went for the high trade house. It is a sexy looking tree line, but not the biggest of rewards, only 150 gold per minute. My issue with this kind of choice is, yes, you are up against the Mongols. They did tech up first, and they will eventually get shamans. But they're not going to race shamans. Right now, Leenock is trying to amass enough knights. The only reason I can think Kasva had for this is that he doesn't want to continue a cavalry race, and thus he realizes that trying to go for these relics would lead to a lot of monk deaths.
Yeah, he probably didn't feel like he's gonna have sufficient map control to really justify going for the Warrior Monk's right with the Abbey. Because if you can only secure 1 or 2 relics, and it also takes a lot of time for you to do that, you might just end up being better with the high trade house. But look at that. Here come the knights out here. Archer's getting caught off guard. Tower's gonna be insufficient to protect them. You can't fit all of those in. And this is a really good trade here for Leenock.
This is where you wish that the Rus had discovered clown card technology, but sadly not. Only 8 people are going to be safe there, and they'll march past to clean up the Rams. A rebuild's going to come out because Leenock, he says, well, yeah, sure, you got rid of my dock, but it's a Ram. And they cannot float on water. They cannot attack fishing boats. I still have eco gains here, and I will not be denied. And instead, Kasva is the one being denied eco here because he wanted these berries long term. It would have delayed the farmland transition, and this means there's going to be a bigger burden on Kasva's wood supply for both the horse archers and the farms that are ahead of him.
And keep in mind that Kasva doesn't have either of the pawns under his control, so he doesn't have fishing eco to get food in, and he's also depleting his hunt rather fast. So at some point, Kasva could have food shortages. He's not there just yet, but it is definitely a concern going forward.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering what the next step is, other than this horse archer spam, which kind of feels good against the Mongols, not going to lie. But I'm going to be honest here. I feel I owe the internet that. The Magadai are not a meme. Once this horse archer spam is seen, Leenock has a choice. If he goes into Magadai, they eviscerate Rus horse archers.
Yeah, especially if you have a good front line like Lancers in front of them. Back in the dark days of the heavy horse archer meta, one of the ways to deal with them was Lancers plus Magadai. Though very expensive, it was a way to deal with the horse archers. So far though, the Lancers are doing a sufficient job enough here. You see villagers will be slain next to the tower, and for the time being, the horse archers repelled.
Yeah, Kasva looked like he had a little bit of stream notification micro good on there. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh yeah, thank you, XO for the 2 months. Oh god, I lost 2 horse archers. Oh yeah, thank you for the dono coming out from Big Hops for the $10. Oh god, I lost another 5 horse archers. That was really weird micro. I think he lost, what, 5, 6 horse archers in the end? That shouldn't be happening without Yam.
Yeah, not at all. And the thing is that horse archers live and die with the critical mass being reached. You need to slowly build up your numbers, and you really can't afford to get your horse archers picked one by one, especially at the beginning. He's up to 11, but oh, look at that. That's some farming coming up over here for him. Talk about the food shortages coming up.
I mean, I like that Kasva's committed to the realism element of farming. You know, when you've got it like nicely condensed around a building, it doesn't make sense. You've got to spread those fields out. And for good reason, actually. Like the Rus is kind of the weird part about them is because the 100 costs for the hunting cabin, usually you'll see people spam a few extra farms to get them online first before getting the additional hunting cabin layers in later, due to the fact that they're paying double the cost of what most civs pay for their drop-off point.
Moving on though, the food eco here for Leenock is starting to kick in with the fishing ships out there. Oh, Warrior Monk could be intercepted by the junk. I wonder if the kill was there. I think looks like the Warrior Monk got away, but the Knights should get the kill. Oh yeah, he drops it off.
Right.
He's
like,
gonna run for it.
Okay, so this is actually really well played by Kasva, because the issue he has here is right now some people are like, well, why doesn't he just try for Wololo? Why doesn't he just like sacrifice the Monk? People do that all the time as the Rus. The problem is you're playing as the Rus without the Abbey of Trinity, which means you're paying 240 resources per Monk. You've got to treat them like they're valuable, because they are.
They are indeed valuable, so are the villagers though, and Leenock, while all the horse archers are chasing the lancers to the north, is gonna swoop in from the right side, getting some good damage done as Kasva is distracted. Once again, the horse archers getting punched to the face, and it looks like these two-pronged assaults are really starting to take a toll on Kasva.
Yeah, Kasva's like, well, I haven't seen too many French spammers on the ladders recently, so I'm not used to this heavy cavalry raid on 2 sides, but gonna have to get used to it. Because Leenock loves moving up this quickly in the castle age and manipulating you with the Lancers so well. You can see the pressure coming in. Kaz only just set up the food network, and look at the income right now. Income good, but surplus bad. If he shuts down this area and idles it for even a minute, Kasva is going to struggle to escalate his horse archer numbers.
And the problem is that the horse archers, they need to be kept in one large group to be efficient. So you either chase those knights to the north or you defend your own eco. Although Kasva chooses to do something different, swooping in with the horse archers, finding possibly an enormous value here for the horse archers.
He's catching him in the middle of a build-up. It looks like Leenock was going for the second TC. Kasva,
he could snipe it.
Read.
Oh, he could actually take some shots.
It's like, it's not worth it in this situation. You die, you lose the whole army, you probably wouldn't kill it. 240 HP. Do you think you can get 240 arrows in that? I like that he doesn't do it. It would probably kill him off. In the meantime, being killed off in his own base, Leenock dove in with the archer mass. Remember, archers counter horse archers. Kasva is making this trade not because it's his choice, but because it's the only option he has. And it's a bad option to take, as we're going to witness Leenock now neck and neck in the eco count and likely to take the lead.
And Kasva is going to struggle cleaning up this mess inside his base much more than Leenock does. Leenock almost cleaned up all the horse archers, whereas for Kasva, what does he have to stop this with? He's down to 9 army, desperately trying to rush up a 3rd town center over here, but I'm not even sure if that's gonna help.
Oh, no, you killed some of my economy. Let me just build more of it. I think this is a little bit too greedy here, Kazli. We'll dodge out the wall, we'll be able to dive in deeper. Now, let's look at the positives here. Kasva has built a garrison point for 10 extra villages, Lidakor.
So you're telling me he only has 53 idols out of the 64 eco he has?
Exactly. Now, looking at the numbers, if Kasva builds another 3 TCs, his whole entire economy will be protected inside TCs.
Well, there is truth in that, for sure.
I
mean, they always protected, but it's still a long shot, you get the feel.
Yeah, the funny part is I've actually seen Kaz do these type of builds, like whether ahead or behind, where it'll be like 3 TCs, then 4 TCs. I really hope this is not a 4 TC Roost game. Otherwise, it's going to be 1 point on the board, but not for him. And in fact, it's getting close to a point where Leenock's going to get that point. The raid comes in again, and look at the lead now building. Despite the fact it's 3 TCs versus 2, Leenock now with over a 10 eco unit advantage and continuing to escalate.
And a problem is the army count, not even the eco count. Kasva has basically no standing army, whereas for Leenock, he's just swooping in every once in a while with the knights, and he's yet to really start making army. You see, Leenock is floating 1,500 food. If all of that was turned into army, Kasva's base would look like it's in an even rougher condition than it is right now.
Yeah, honestly, right now, Leenock looks like he's just have his army go to the edge of Roost space and just kind of eat meat on the edge and say, yeah, look, we actually aren't famished right now. We're doing pretty well. We're a thriving economy. We can support an army. Everyone in our kingdom eats. Doesn't feel like anyone is eating in Kasva's kingdom as much as being eaten by these lancers. And my issue right now is he still doesn't have a solution. And I don't like this as a choice solution. He's going harder into cavalry, knights and horse archers now, but look what's happening on the other side. Leenock is now pivoting into crossbows, and crossbows actually trade pretty well against the horse archers, especially considering they have a superior range.
Yeah, especially if you have a meat shield in front of them as well. And you see that Leenock, he does not stop producing lancers, he keeps adding them. So not only will he have a good number of crossbows, he's also going to have a decent amount of lancers to support them with. It's also going to be a preemptive response to any kind of siege that could come out from Kasva. And as you said, Leenock is just one step ahead. He's got the surplus of resources to afford the switch into a unit that counters Kasva's comp. Whereas for Kasva, he's just so stuck in his base, so hard to access resources for him, that he's really struggling to make a tech switch here.
And let's keep in mind what this also offers up down the line. You're the Mongols, so you can build your siege, right? So he can quickly turn this into a siege force, because right now it's just a raid. That's the beauty of adding infantry. It's why it's such a critical element to practically any Mongol game plan. I think we're going to start seeing that come out soon. In fact, it looks like mangonels are already being built in prep for the new massive horse archers that Kasva's like to invest in.
Yeah, for the time being, Kasva's only at 2 horse archers, so I guess there are some positives in there. A little horse archer, what are you doing?
I'm not infantry. I can't help. Let me out. No. We're going to teach you how to build mangonels, because once the Mongol cavalry know how to build siege, they will be unstoppable.
I struggle to see how hammer is long enough for a cavalryman to reach the mangonel on the ground, though. So I don't know how he could build it. What's the plan there?
Gaffer tape. You sellotape it to like the end of your spear and use like long range tap.
Speaking of long-range taps, so here come the knights. Will take down the mangonel in all certainty, although Kasva, indeed, getting the wraparound, gets the mangonel, but what's the price he's paying for this? Look at all the knights getting evaporated.
Yeah, that's a bad trade. That is hands down a bad trade. You can't even argue another way. What just happened there? The mangonel, like, you would have had to have killed 2 mangonels for that to be, like, considerable, right? You just lost over 1,000 resources in knights. You did not kill that much in terms of Mongol support there. Problematic as well, because not only do you lose in terms of the exchange, but now you don't have a defensive line. Kasva is down to 5 knights. Leenock up at 11. He can split up to look for clues, and once again, idle his opponent while he sets up the trebs. Trebs that are going to counter out a keep being rushed up by Kasva. He will complete it, but remember, the siege is already in position, and Kasva has no way of sniping it.
Exactly, and now we have 12 crossbows on the field for Leenock, so diving in with the knights is no longer an option because they will just get evaporated by the crossbows. So you can't really snipe the trebuchets without springles, but Kasva is just now starting to add the siege workshops. Once again, the problem is that he's playing a reactive game in a game in which Leenock controls both sacred sites, and he's already at 8 minutes countdown, and just look at the flood of units coming out.
Whew. He might not be able to teach the cavalry how to build siege, but he's got enough crossbow boys here to do that anyway. Now escalating up to 4 trebuchets, Leenock sees an opportunity to win, and why wouldn't you see this opportunity? Think about what Kasva done. 2 squishy TCs forward of his primary, and a keep to the side that doesn't protect. And by the way, Kasva, in all of his ultimate greed, if you look just southeast of this location, he did go 4 TCs. He done what we suspected, and it's exactly why he cannot afford anything. All of his eco is going idle, all of his base is being destroyed, and this raid in looks pitiful from the Roost player.
You really get the feel that the 4 TC play here was just purely out of desperation because he felt like he lost so much that he needed it. But then again, as you said, investing into 4 town centers means that he's not investing into army sufficiently, and he's now desperately outnumbered by Leenock's forces. We are talking about 101 army against Kasva, who has a total population of 120.
Honestly, I don't know if it's delusion or hope that's holding Kasva in this, but either way, it feels misinformed at this stage. I struggle to see a way back in. I mean, even if you get some good chip raids in, Leenock's army is so big and you don't kill it. It's going to kill your base before you amass a defense force. Like, this is basically GG. I've got to give credit to Leenock. Like, the way that he doubled down the lake and then recovered on the eastern one, beating Kasva the punchline was good, but in hindsight, looking back at this one, I think Kasva is going to have regrets over his lack of vision when he raided towards Leenock's base after transitioning land, because that's the detail that mattered. If Kasva struck in sooner, very different game we're looking at, but credit to Leenock where it is due. Not too greedy, great balance of force, and now that force is proving overwhelming in the back of Kasva's base.
It is definitely proving overwhelming. The castle goes down. Inside the base of Kasva, the spearman can close the distance to the horse archers, dishing out a ton of punishment. Crossbows out there, close distance as well. And the thing is that Kasva, it isn't sufficient for him to just survive in here. He needs to break out of his base in 7 minutes, but it's not even a realistic goal for him at this point. At this point, all he can hope for is that he can somehow keep his landmarks alive, because they are soon going to be targeted by those trebuchets rolling up.
At this point, I'm wondering if he's going to GG out before or after Leenock techs up, because he's about to get what he needs for Imperial at this rate. You'll see him reinvest a little bit into the army, but he's scaling because he keeps 200 pop cap for so long. And the reason he does this is because, remember, you're the Mongols. Every building you destroy, your boy Leenock's getting paid. And he's getting paid well, because those trebuchets can easily snipe down a lot of these farms. They've sniped down the extended area, and oh god, that should be GG moment. Kasva caught out with an additional 12 villagers with nowhere to run and hide. No defense force to truly hold. Leenock looking phenomenal in this first map.
Indeed, bit of a pedestrian start for him in this game, but then he turned on the afterburners and he was soaring past Kasva ever since minute 15. Convincing game number 1 for him, as you said, possibly a missed opportunity for Kasva to do punishment as Leenock was stacking up, but ever since Leenock has reached Castle Age, he has had firm control over this game, mainly thanks to those Night Raids that have done so much damage to Kasva's eco.
And I think what we really saw was a big difference in exploited opportunities here. If you think about the way this game played out, back and forth action, back and forth opportunities to take control of the game, but Kasva seemingly more defensive than Leenock. When Leenock was proposed an opportunity to do something, he doubled down on it, he exploited it, he milked it to the mass. Kasva was like a person discovering milk for the first time. He's like, I'm not even sure if I want to try this. And we saw that multiple times, right? He took control of the water initially, but he wasn't able to like quickly sidestep into land influence to